So hi everybody, in this video we're going to talk about the Geo Collaborate platform that's being used by the SICE, the Sensitive Information Sharing Environment, operated by the All Hazards Consortium in partnership with Storm Center Communications. This tool answered the requirement for the private sector, which was how do we create a mechanism to share our information with government without uploading or giving them our data. The trust factor is just not there. So the Fleet Response Working Group folks were looking at different platforms, and we came across this platform as was referred to us through the Maryland Department of Emergency Management. And it was designed by NASA and NOAA. I guess NASA funded it. And then so today we're going to walk through some of the capabilities. On the phone with us is Dave Jones, CEO of Storm Center Communications. So this is the technology behind this tool is the most important thing, and it's hard to grasp. So Dave's really gotten the way to communicate it down pretty good. But it's a way of sharing data without giving access to data or without giving people the data. So Dave, I'll turn it over to you, and let's just kind of walk through this. I think this will be very important for people to understand how the technology works.
Sure, Tom. Thanks. Well, what you see on the screen is basically a question that a lot of people are asking: what is Geo Collaborate? And essentially, I've broken it down into three screens here. You have a leader, so if somebody has credentials to log on and take the lead of a Geo Collaborate instance, then they can display any data layers on it that they want. It could be real-time data layers. It could be critical infrastructure layers that are made available through web services from FEMA or DHS or internally at other state organizations or any organization, frankly. And then on the right-hand side is follower. Anybody who connects to the web and connects to the URL address that the leader is hosting will then follow in real time. And this is not screen sharing. This is actual geospatial data sharing. So when somebody connects to that URL, they will see a map, and they will start to receive data sets into their mapping environment that are produced in real time from the leader.
So Dave, let me clarify something that I didn't understand at first that maybe others hearing this for the first time may not. So a leader is someone who has a license, which you refer to as an instance of their own, right? So when I have a license, I become a leader, and I then control sharing the data or not sharing the data layer. And the follower is anyone with a browser who is given the URL. There's no login or password needed, which was another requirement of the private sector. They didn't want to have to remember username and passwords, right? And so an instance, right, is basically what you're calling a license, allows you to post and share that information to the followers. That's great. Go ahead.
That's right, Tom, and you do not need a license to be a follower, and there's no limit to the number of followers. So we've never hit a limit where it breaks. So that's good to know. And also, when you are a follower, you can receive the data sets from the leader in real time, and then once you turn Geo Collaborate off as a follower, you can still have those data sets on your system. But when you close the browser, all the data goes away.
Yeah.
So you have no real way of sharing that information from a follower out. You really are connected to the leader and what they want you to see. So the leader can turn those data sets on and off in real time.
So Dave, let me ask you a question about that. So if I'm a follower, I open up my web browser, it opens up the map, and whatever data you turn on shows up on my screen. What is showing up on my screen? It's really not the data set, right? Is it an image of the data?
Nope, it's the actual data, because you can query that information too. You can click on it, and I'll show you that in a real-time demo here in just a few minutes on how you can click on the data and inquire. But what happens with that information is it's pulled into the web browser cache. You can't save it, and you can't export it. So once the browser window is closed, all that information disappears. And when the leader turns the data off and no longer shares it, it's also gone from your browser.
Okay, so that answers the question in a sensitive information sharing. If it's in my cache, it's not on my hard drive, right? It's not. I don't have the data file, right? I just have the data
That's right.
in a cache. You turn it off on your end as a leader. I can't download it and save it. Okay, very good, very unique.
That's right. And one of the other unique things we did, Tom, is that in delivering the data to everybody's individual web browser, because it doesn't matter what web browser they're using. They could be using their phone, or they could be using an iPad, device. Is that we're using the power of everybody's local systems that they're using to visualize the data in their mapping environments. So that's also very unique.
Yeah.
And it works cross-platform. Okay. So the image that you see down the bottom is called a dashboard, and it's called a collaborative dashboard because the leader can determine what data layers they want to appear on the left-hand side of this dashboard. And a dashboard is the URL. You click on dashboard, and then you can keep this up 24/7, 365. Whenever the leader changes things like layers, then the dashboard will update every 30 minutes. And so there's also a key points window here. If the leader updates key points, that will update much faster than 30 minutes to keep people abreast of when the next update is coming or what data sets might be important, new data sets that are being shared, things like that. And then this is an example of being able to query against the data set. This was when Hurricane Michael was making landfall or approaching the panhandle of Florida. This data set was estimated wind damage that the National Weather Service was putting out. When you click on that red area, this window popped up that says threat level, potential for wind 74 to 110 miles per hour, and then list the potential impacts of that wind.
Yeah.
So it allows people to receive data sets and inquire by clicking on those data sets what they mean.
So, Dave, this is powered by Esri, right? What is, I noticed in the bottom right corner, how would you explain the difference between the Esri platform, which is certainly a powerful platform, it's used all over the place. What would you say is the difference between Geo Collaborate and Esri? A lot of people use Esri; they're very familiar with it. It looks the same. What's the difference in sharing data on Esri versus collaborating on Geo Collaborate?
Sure. So when Esri is a licensed GIS package, so they have Esri ArcGIS online. They have desktop versions of Esri, which is a pretty complex GIS program to use. You have to be pretty knowledgeable in GIS to use it. The great thing about Esri as well is that they export and can make available web services. So they can put out web mapping services, they can put out feature services. They're basically data services that Geo Collaborate consumes, right? So Geo Collaborate is not a complex GIS technology. It's a technology to focus on sharing out of trusted data sources across multiple platforms and multiple use cases and multiple users, so they can see those products. They don't have to worry about whether they understand GIS or not.
I gotcha. Yeah, and I think from the SICE standpoint, this was really a decision support tool for speed, right? Getting authoritative data on one picture, on one screen. You could have multiple dashboards for different use cases, certainly. But I know that's why the Fleet Response Working Group and its SICE Working Group selected Geo Collaborate, just because of that, because of the speed. Because half the time they're on their cell phone, they're on their mobile device, right? Very different environment.
That's right.
So, okay.
And it's a very light application, so it works very quickly.
Yes. Okay.
Okay. So the next slide I want to show here, Tom, is an example. We're taking Pennsylvania and how they might share information out to the private sector, to organizations that might want to see information that Pennsylvania might be staging in a business emergency operations center. So, for example, if Pennsylvania sends their data into the trusted data cloud, then anybody who turns Geo Collaborate on will also get that data in real time. And then as it updates, it will also update on these follower systems, these private sector companies that are getting it. And then, of course, if these other ones like Giant and Hershey and Garden Center, Tire Center, and Walmart, as soon as they turn Geo Collaborate on, then the data flows into them as well. And one thing that's important to understand with Geo Collaborate is, even if you join a collaborative session late, you will still receive all of the data that you missed when the collaboration session started. So all that data will load up so everybody can see what the leaders shared.
So in this example, Pennsylvania has the license and they're the leader of turning the data on or off, right? All the other folks are using their internet browsers, but they still have to click that button on their screen that says turn GeoCollaborate on for the data to be sucked into their cache for them to see it, right?
That's right. They just have to turn it on, and then all of a sudden they'll see the information that Pennsylvania is sharing.
I got it. Okay. And now if they turn that off, what happens?
If they turn the switch off, they will maintain the data sets until they close the browser. But when they turn it off, they'll no longer be following Pennsylvania, so then they can move around the data however they'd like.
I got it.
Once they close the browser, then all the data's gone.
And so let's say they close the browser, they go home, 9 o'clock at night after dinner, you turn it back on, what happens then?
Then that data will load back up into their browser.
Okay, the latest updates will load it. Okay.
That's right. Whatever
Excellent.
Pennsylvania has loaded into their leader instance will be shared in real time out to anybody who connects to that URL.
So an example of this is how we at the All Hazards Consortium use this. We have a license. So the consortium and the Fleet Work Group would be Pennsylvania in this case, and we have hundreds of followers that monitor our power outage, not power outage, but our power expediting, power restoration dashboard, right? Which we call the Fleet Movement Dashboard. So no logins, people just pull it up and can leave it up, and as we update it, they get it update. And we use it as a way to get 20, 30 states and 100 companies all on the same page at the same time with regards to fleet movement use case, which is combining weather, transportation, declarations, waivers from a bunch of states and local counties and cities. It's a very effective method, but I think other people may have their own internal or external use cases where they need to have a whole bunch of people following the same data at the same time for coordination. So good example. This is real, right? Pennsylvania is actually doing this now through their EOC, correct?
That's correct. Mm-hmm.
Okay, good.
So the next slide that I have, Tom, that I want to show is how companies or organizations or federal agencies can share data into the trusted cloud environment, and then going into, let's say, the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania's instance. So if this company up here, CNS, knows of fuel closed locations in Maryland and Virginia, and they've highlighted it with red dots, they could share that information into the cloud. So could this property company, HPS LLC in Pennsylvania, they might highlight counties that need assistance during particular events. They could share that information into the cloud service. And then a utility might have transmission and distribution lines that they have updated or whatever that they want to add into the trusted cloud service. And then Pennsylvania could connect to each one of them individually and pull their data in right into Pennsylvania's instance. So that brings three disparate types of data together into one mapping environment, so you can get a collaborative common operating picture and a look at this information. And I can blow that up here just for an example. Here are the transmission distribution lines, and then you have the power out locations for fuel in Maryland and Northern Virginia, and then you have the counties that are highlighted that this property manager might need assistance with. So that's three separate data sets going into one collaborative common operating picture right into GeoCollaborate for Pennsylvania. And this can be duplicated and replicated everywhere, right? Any company that has any data can offer their data up.
So Dave, go back to that previous screen for just a second. Yeah, so in this example, everybody would have their own license. I think you have a footnote in the title, right? Requires individual license and a data sharing agreement. The data sharing agreement that CNS, for example, they will control who can use their data or see their data or not, right? So it's through the data sharing agreement, CNS decides who can see and who can't, right?
That's right.
Okay. And then in this case, obviously the utility, HPS LLC and CNS have all agreed through the data agreement that PEMA, or Pennsylvania Emergency Management, is one of those the organizations who have the ability to look at the information. Fantastic. Okay. So CNS can turn that on at noon and turn that off at 12:30. They can, in other words, they have control.
Exactly. Yeah. Every person who's offering the data has total control through an on-off switch of how long that data is offered, and you can see on other instances. And I'll demonstrate that here in just a second.
Okay. Yeah, that's key, that the people that own the data have control of sharing or not, and they also have control of who can look at it. So it's not just on a public cloud. It's really not on a cloud. It's being shared through the trusted cloud service, which in our world is the SIS, right? The Sensitive Information Sharing Environment. But there may be other instances where you don't have a SIS and people can do this internally. But the people that own the data have total control over when it's shared and who can look at it. Outstanding. Okay, good.
That's right, exactly. So we'll go through that thing, and what I'm going to do now is I'm going to minimize this PowerPoint here, and then I'm going to go and bring up these two instances of Geo Collaborate that you see on the screen. So I want to go through a quick little example. What you see on the left-hand side is an example of a Pennsylvania emergency management instance of Geo Collaborate. It's not their actual one. This is just an instance that we're using for testing internally. I have Geo Collaborate turned on, and then the map on the right is Geo Collaborate as a follower, okay, in Pennsylvania.
Okay.
So if I move here and zoom into Geo Collaborate or zoom into Pennsylvania, nothing happens in this one until I turn Geo Collaborate on. When I turn it on, it now matches my map. So if I want to go down into Pittsburgh, zoom down into Pittsburgh on my leader instance, then the follower instance follows in real time.
So
the one data set I'm going to go and get here that we've been working with is, let's say, the real-time 511, Pennsylvania 511 traffic data. And I want to turn that on, which shows the real-time situation of traffic in Pennsylvania. So you can see it loaded in my leader instance and pretty quickly loaded in the follower instance.
Right.
So if the follower tries to zoom in, then they will pop right back to the leader's map extent because they're still following.
Right.
Okay? And so what I want to do here is just show that example of Pennsylvania in a leader-follower scenario can turn the data on and off. Okay? So if they turn that data off, then the data stops flowing into the follower's instance as well.
Got it.
Okay? So now I want to bring in another instance. This is a totally different instance called Acme Recycling on the right-hand side. And they have their own instance. This is a fictitious private sector company.
So Acme,
they turn Geo Collaborate on.
So Acme has purchased a license or an instance, right? And now they want to share.
Correct.
They want to share some or part of their data with Pennsylvania. Got it. Okay.
Okay, so what they want to do is I'm going to take the lead, I'm going to start a new session, and what I want to show you is how a separate instance of Acme Recycling here can access data from Pennsylvania. So if I'm over here on the Pennsylvania site and I want to go back in and turn the traffic layers on, let's just say that Acme Recycling is collaborating with their distribution points throughout Pittsburgh.
Okay.
That's where their focus is on, Pittsburgh.
Yeah.
And they want to see the live traffic information. Well, through a data sharing agreement, they now have this button that says Select Server Site. They can pull it down, click Pennsylvania, which means they want to connect into Pennsylvania's instance and see the data sets that Pennsylvania is offering.
Yeah.
Once they click it, all of a sudden that traffic information pops into Acme Recycling's instance.
I see.
And that's coming from Pennsylvania's instance.
Right. Fantastic. So Dave, Dave, do me a favor. Pull that window down one more time on the Acme session, Pennsylvania. So what's listed there would be the sites that you have an agreement with to share your data with, Maryland, private power, Pennsylvania, right? So that could be 3 or 4 or 5 or 10. It doesn't really matter, right?
That's right.
Okay, got it.
That's right.
Okay, very good.
It allows you to start building relationships with organizations that you may want to have their data at some point
Yep.
during a given disaster or evolving situation or whatever. So the mere fact of now having the technology to reach into other companies and share this information
Yep.
is a great reason to start building public-private sector relationships and doing that before events happen.
I got you. It's fantastic. Good.
Okay? So now Acme Recycling can query this data, right? I'm clicking on this one. This is a road work on Pennsylvania 885 northbound between this street.
Yep.
I can close that. I can go down to this bridge here, which is a bridge out. It's a bridge outage.
Right.
All lanes closed. So, this information is being updated all the time, and no matter where Pennsylvania moves on their map, it doesn't really matter because Acme Recycling just wants Pennsylvania data for their interested area.
Right.
Okay? So, an example, let me just show you real quickly that if Acme Recycling wants to display, let's just say they want to display a data set of, suppose they have some cleanup sites. They have active recycling toxic cleanup sites.
Sure.
In the state of Pennsylvania here for
Right.
this company. Okay? Then Pennsylvania might say, hey, we're having some flooding around Pittsburgh. I want to see where I'm going to turn off my traffic sites.
Yep.
Okay, I'm going to turn those off, but I want to go into my data sharing agreement and see what Acme Recycling has.
I got it. Wow.
So now they've clicked Recycling, and their data has now come over into PIMA's site.
Got it.
Okay.
So by prearranged agreement, Acme and Pennsylvania have established the data handling and processing and labeling procedures. All that stuff is pre-done, right? So that it makes it makes it simple enough to open, pull down the menu, and share, right?
That's right.
I got it. Okay.
And now when Acme Recycling says, okay, it's 12:30, we're not going to share this information anymore,
Yep.
they turn that data layer off, and then all of a sudden the data layer stops being shared. So it looks like we're still working on that part of getting that to disappear. But it works the same way both ways.
I got it. So
essentially,
in effect, those yellow pins would disappear when Acme turned off the data. Got it. Okay.
Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly. And so it's just a matter of creating this environment where these can be shared back and forth, and when you turn them on, and I'll just do a reload here, turn this on, and make this a leader. Start a new session, and then you'll see that the data is not there.
Okay.
So what we're working on right now is just making sure that these are working back and forth per data sharing agreements and all that stuff.
Right.
And that's exactly how it works.
I got it. So I know the use cases we're working on is how do you coordinate if I'm a private sector company, how do I know what government is doing in and around my assets, right? This could be a way I could monitor traffic, flooding, government activity, or whatever going on around my yellow push pins, right? From a government standpoint, this would allow government to know what critical infrastructure is around or near these traffic jams, flood zones, lightning strikes, tornadoes, whatever, right?
That's right.
I got it. Okay.
That's right. And it allows for much more rapid data set discovery when you're sharing data sets between different organizations or agencies, because what Geo Collaborate really enables you to do is allow subject matter experts who know a lot about data and where it is to populate instances of Geo Collaborate, and then you're turning to those experts for that data, and all of a sudden you have relationships built, you have trusted data networks built, and you have a secure cloud in which to share that information.
It's fantastic. Well, I know as we've discovered over the last several set of storms, Florence and Michael, I know your relationships with your ESIP Federation, their science information partners, you were able to find new data and bring it to the table for us like within minutes. And we could have never found that stuff just because we don't have time. We're responding to the storm. So to your point, you use partners to basically do all the data mashup, and then you were able to bring it back through the GeoCollaborate products to all the people that aren't technical people, right? And to show them the data set. So it saved hours of research. So I see you pulled up the Florence dashboard we used recently.
That's right. This is the Florence dashboard, and it brings in some new products from the National Hurricane Center, showing when tropical storm force winds were likely to arrive along the land. And then it was also showing, excuse me, the radius of winds around the storm at various forecast times to give the utility sector an idea for when those winds might arrive. There's also, like you mentioned, the declarations and waivers that were issued. This example is clicking on the state of Virginia, and you can access the state of emergency, transportation waiver, and the Federal Motor Carrier Services Administration regional transportation waiver that showed up, and those are all in purple as well, up and down these states. So when you click on that, you actually get, from the Commonwealth of Virginia, a waiver for carriers transporting essential emergency relief supplies, and you also get the executive order for the declaration of the state of emergency.
So this is
really helpful.
Go ahead.
I was just going to say where this really is applicable is, any trucks driving down the road, if they have their device connected to the All Hazards Consortium and the dashboard, they can get these official documents just by touching the state. They don't have to print all these documents out and carry them with them in their cab.
Yeah, this is really helpful because this is non-GIS data. These are PDF files, right? But
that's right.
You were able to create a hyperlink inside the GIS tool, so when a state declares, it turns red. A driver can just click on the red state, and up pops the window. They click on the state of emergency declaration. There's the document. So that was extremely helpful in this use case because we had hundreds and hundreds of companies using this because those drivers need these documents to have legal authority when they operate out of their home states. So it's just quicker. It's just faster than emailing and PDF files and waiting for downloads and all that stuff.
Right, and the more people that connect to the dashboard through their browsers on their devices, the All Hazards Consortium becomes a very obvious place to send all these documents to put them into the session.
Yeah. No, it's funny, Dave. We actually have states giving us a 2 to 3 hour heads up. We're going to declare at noon because we've been using this for so long. They know the tool now, and they want to get their document on the tool very quickly. So they'll send me an email saying, "Hey, we're going to declare emergency in an hour or 2 hours or whatever." So it really has helped the states know where to put this stuff to get it out to the most people. Go ahead.
Yeah, no, that's terrific. This next slide just shows that we have access because we work a lot with NOAA and NASA. This is NOAA satellite imagery of Hurricane Florence, and the Hurricane Center identifies how wide the 34-knot winds are, the radius, the storm force winds, and then the hurricane force winds. So we can pull this information together and put it into GeoCollaborate along with the hurricane warnings and all that sort of stuff. And this is a product from NOAA that forecasts the wind gusts. So this is out every 6 hours, and you can see the strong wind gusts and where they're expected to be. And then this particular one is deriving flooded areas from satellite. So I'm on a working group with NOAA, an initiative on river ice and flooding. And these pixels here are picked up by satellite showing where there's flooding, where there's water. and we did a little validation and verification in this area right here, which was right over I-40 in North Carolina, and this is the picture of I-40 totally flooded. So this kind of product is looking really good, and it's really giving us some promise for identifying flooded areas, and more importantly, moving into the realm of when will this flooded area be open?
Yeah.
How long will this road remain flooded, and when can we get relief supplies through there? And this last one here is just is sort of a kudos to the state of North Carolina. They did a phenomenal job issuing a state of emergency on September 7th. Based on the Hurricane Center forecast, Florence was way out here in the Atlantic. They issued, whenever a state issues a state of emergency, and we get that notification through the All Hazards Consortium, then the state lights up red, and you can get that that documentation. Look how far out the hurricane was, and they issued that state of emergency 7 days before landfall. So North Carolina really deserves kudos for getting things in order and helping to prepare for such a big storm.
Now, and I can tell you on the back end, North Carolina declaring early like that really helped the private sector start moving people, assets, resources quickly so they could get pre-positioned. Utilities were moving to be pre-positioned so that they didn't have to lose a day or two, positioning assets. So that was a big move. And that's no small feat.
That's right.
That's no
that's
small.
Right. And I'll tell you, the more, and kudos not just to North Carolina, but to NOAA and the National Hurricane Center for a phenomenal forecast.
Yeah. No, that's very true. They were right on the money. Okay, very good.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. And that's it.
So Dave, part of this. Okay, let me pause right here. Okay.